Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That is the podcast about itself, ourselves, and the self in general. This week we've got an interesting experience. Oh man, all right, we are encompassing the whole idea of our
We'll do it live.
and we had extreme technical difficulties right when we were trying to get the podcast rolling, and our guest was not able to make it. I'm sorry. Let's not. I'm not putting it on the guest. The guest made it. We were all here. However, technology was not on our side. So I think we're just. I guess Distance has an idea for some of a topic, right? And we're just gonna wing it, right?
Yeah, we'll do it live.
We'll fucking do it live.
That's what we do around here. As we fix our hair in the camera. Oh my god, I'm such a dork.
So yeah, Ashton was in my chat, and I can confirm the do it live sample that was in the conversation did go to Stream Mix. He said it scared the absolute shit out of him. So
yeah. So on the subject of technical difficulties, since that's kind of our theme, I didn't hear you speaking at the beginning of the intro. But I know you're in the stream because I watched it.
Okay.
We should probably have Ashton confirm if he actually heard the intro, because all I heard was bluegrass music.
Shit. Well, I only talk over the last half. Hold on. Yeah.
It was clearly cut off, but it's fine. It's cool. This is great. This is hilarious. You can always edit it in later.
True. Ashton, are you there? Can you hear me? And can you confirm if the intro had my intro over it, basically?
Yeah, because all of a sudden I heard like you in the middle of a sentence talking, but that just might be the audio source we're using for communication. Yeah.
Oh.
So okay, so there you go. In case you wondered, we're regular people with regular people problems, and this crap happens to everyone. Yeah. So here's the topic that I have. This is off the cuff, by the way. We just decided let's just go live and figure something out. And I was like, I got a good one. So here's what we're talking about today. If you're cool with it, sir. Is technology really making humans weak?
Ooh, okay. I'm down with that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's your topic. That means you start. The Otis is on you, man.
Are those headlights? Okay. Oops. Okay. So I guess there's this whole idea that on average, most humans after 35 tend to sort of think that the world was better when they were younger.
Yeah.
And, we're approaching that age, and there was a period of time where I kind of had this idea that I was like, oh yeah, man, like people used to be able to read maps, and like people could have a conversation. Now there's all this text messaging, all these social networking, blah 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 blah. Don't nobody got no social skills no more. And it's funny actually that 35 average age thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a total rabbit trail.
That is
rabbit
fine.
Total rabbit thing. Adam Conover from Adam Ruins Everything did a fun presentation where he went to a conference where they were attempting to market to millennials. It was a marketing conference to try to help people understand it. And so since his show is the demographic is, what is the weird arbitrary? It was in 1984 to 1990 something. I don't even know who's considered technically millennials, quote.
Okay.
But he said, well, what I would like to do is I'd like to make this Adam Ruins Millennials.
Okay.
So he talks about how no matter, it's not the way that current adults, like older people, baby boomers, talk about or to millennials. It's just things that older people say about younger people. And he cited an editorial that somebody wrote where it was like, all these young men on the train ride to work have their faces buried in these newspapers instead of interacting with other men on the train.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, how is that really different? So I think it was Elon Musk actually said it, and I don't remember who he was talking to, but he mentioned that he was like, I'm not a weakened human. I'm an augmented human.
Was it? Yeah.
I have a supercomputer in my pocket. And I was like,
I think that was when he was on the Joe Rogan Experience. I remember hearing him say that.
I want to say it was then, but I feel like I mentioned Joe Rogan so much on here, who has his own podcast, that I was like, even if it was, just don't even say it.
Okay.
And then there.
Sorry.
Because that's the first time you've mentioned him, I think, that you've actually started the subject of Joe Rogan. So
good.
There you go. You get 3 more or 2 more,
All
whatever. So, but yeah, that's a thought that I kind of had. Like, is it truly making us weak? Like, if everything stops working tomorrow, like there was some weird show where like the laws of physics changed and somehow electricity didn't work anymore.
Ooh.
I don't remember the name of the show.
That's a nightmare, though.
Yeah, it was weird. Like some dude pushed a button and then destroyed physics. It was weird. And there's a scene in there where a guy's like, "Hey, what did you do before the blackout?" He's like, "I used to work for a company called Google. No one needs that anymore." Like, wait, what? It was an internet company. It's like, oh, I've read about that. So
I think, Ashton, I think you're right. Millennials are basically like 23 to 38 in age, right? Is that what it's supposed to be, or?
Which is hilarious because, like, if you look at the cross section of ages, the time that happens, if you look at the years, there's a massive like culture and technology change, like right in the middle of that.
Oh yeah.
So there's a whole group of people that were born right in the middle of something where they're never going to experience, which is why it was Eliza Schlesinger, the comedian. She had that special on Netflix called Elder Millennial.
Yeah, I thought that was a really clever title. Yeah, I like that.
When people that are, in their mid to late 50s or whatever say things like, "Oh, I would never expect a millennial to blah 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 blah," and I'm like, well, you see, I'm an elder millennial, sir. Or madam. So yeah, it's like, so I guess the question is, in your opinion, do you think that if electricity stopped working tomorrow, that we'd all just be screwed?
Yes. I do, yes.
I feel like I didn't give a good definition of screwed. Like, how well do you think the human race would survive at that point, I guess, is a better question.
I think there would be a huge amount of people that I think would die. The entire way, like all of the logistics of how we get our food, how we I think there would be a mass food shortage, with refrigeration not working. I think that there would be major problems that would lead to a lot of deaths. I don't think that it would actually, cause humans to go extinct. But yes, I think there would be a massive die-off that would be, devastating. Yeah.
And a lot of that isn't, well, it depends how you define technology, because technically paper is technology.
True. Yeah.
So it depends how you define it. Like, I guess if we're defining it as like electronics and, computers and smartphones and, I don't know, Sony Discmans, whatever.
All right, that's showing your age.
Discmans?
That like, you didn't say iPod or like iPhone, like you went to Sony Discman or Sony Discman.
Because I'm an elder millennial, sir.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah, you know what those are.
Yeah.
We have a whole generation of people that remove, like cardiologists that remove a heart, blow in it, and put it back in the person's chest. Because of Nintendo,
Yeah.
Everybody did that.
Yeah.
So I guess that, because a lot of the reason why people would perish has more to do with the fact that we're removed from the way that food is produced. But that's not necessarily, and you could call that technology. I don't know if you really would want to. I mean, that's really more agriculture.
Yeah.
But I think that those people would perish not necessarily because of the technology itself, but because of the fact that we sort of built an infrastructure and a way to fulfill biological needs that's an industry.
Well, yeah, I think we've almost like written ourselves into a corner where, because we live in cities, I guess like the vast majority of people live in cities where there is not the ability to, grow natural food or where they are, the food has to be refrigerated and shipped in and everything. And if that infrastructure crumbled, all of a sudden, I think there would be massive deaths. Like, or I shouldn't say all of a sudden, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that, I guess just throwing a random number out, no, not random, an educated guess, percentage wise, how many people specifically in the United States, like percentage wise, what percentage of people do you think would just perish?
Wow, that's tough. Well, I mean, of course, like there's like a guarantee all of the people who, rely, like there's, think of like a lot of elderly, a lot of people that are really sick that their life literally relies on some sort of technology to like pacemakers, like things like that. Well, I guess like, all right, hold on, that's an internal technology that doesn't actually require an electricity from the outside, right? So if we're talking like, if electricity just stopped working, I think would pacemakers continue to work basically, or I guess I
don't know. That might.
I don't know. We're kind of getting in the weeds there with that, but either way,
take like 1.5 percentage points off of your guess now.
Okay.
For people that would die, maybe we're math. This is science, everyone. We're doing science.
I would estimate. I mean that worldwide, I think the deaths would at least be in the hundreds of millions.
Worldwide?
Yes. Yeah.
Out of the 7 billion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, that's a small percentage, actually. No, I'm
actually,
sorry.
It's 7 point something now. It's more than that.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I really understood that. I can't do percentages. Probably.
You could say hundreds of millions for the United States. That wouldn't be that inaccurate because there's what?
Yeah.
How many people? Hold on.
330 million, give or take. I think something around that.
330 million. That's it. That's in the U.S.
I think so. Yeah.
Dude, that's nuts.
No.
Googling 327.2 million as of 2018. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, okay, so if we're talking US, I would guess between 50 to 75% would probably end up dying.
Oh man.
Worldwide,
that's a lot of people.
I think the ratio would probably be around that. Yeah.
And I think that there are more. Well, if you look at Western Europe, it's interesting because the United States, our infrastructure was it. Who was that? Was that Eisenhower when they built the? It doesn't matter, but
the interstate system.
When the interstate system was built, that was Eisenhower, right?
Yeah. Did you know that it was that was actually only like in respect like that was a war thing? Like he went to Germany and he saw the Autobahn and he realized that they had a way to transport troops and like tanks and everything long distances without it crumbling like dirt roads. And he was like, we need that. And that was like, it was a military, like, it's interesting. Like it was actually like, I mean, the whole reason for it.
It's so funny. Our U.S. president goes overseas and sees a highway. The British go to India. What do they come back with? Curry powder.
Yeah.
Which isn't even a thing in India. They were just like, let's bottle this generic blend of spices.
I love that, yeah.
And then mislead Westerners for the rest of time.
Yeah, it's the curry spice. It grows indigenously in India.
Oh yeah, it's funny. That cracks me up. But yeah, so okay, Eisenhower. So like our infrastructure was sort of like.
Thank you, Ashton. Thank you so much.
Pretty much all of it was built post industrial revolution. But if you look in Western Europe, there's a lot of like close towns and places where you can kind of get wherever you need to on a bicycle. So I think that there's plenty of areas of the world where people are less removed from the production of their food.
Yes.
Because I guess because of the question I asked, I think we're getting really hung up on the who would die and who wouldn't if all of a sudden electricity stopped. And that's kind of like a doomsday, like dystopian future thing. So, and while that's interesting, and I think it's a valid thing to talk about, that we could just make it even. So if I used my smartphone today because I was on the highway and there's a crash and there's really bad traffic, and I was like, okay, I shall take my phone and open the map, and then I will find a way around it. I would have been stuck in that traffic today if I hadn't done that. I don't know the roads in the area I was in that well. And instead of getting stressed out, I was like, I'm just going to enjoy the scenery in this unfamiliar place I'm driving through.
Nice. Okay.
Which was cool. But, it's like, how many people, particularly in the U.S., because I mean that's what we know that better than any other country. We live here. If they didn't have a smartphone, like how lost would everybody be?
I would. I use GPS to go basically everywhere. But in response to actually exactly what you were saying, excuse me. I know that my GPS knows things that I don't. For instance, even if I know how to get from point A to point B, I can put the address in the GPS and it actually knows that there's an accident on the road that I would normally take and automatically detours me around that. You know, like it can figure out the short, like there's no way that I could know that until I got on that road. So I understand, like, yeah, we do kind of use it as a crutch, I guess, and it does take away from some of our abilities to do things on our own. However, I think that it frees up bandwidth for us to think about and do other things than in the place of that, I guess.
True. Yeah. We can instead of getting stressed out about being lost, we have a means to not be. And you know, it's another thing for even if you travel to an unfamiliar place. Like I was in Delaware. Yes, Delaware.
Okay.
For work. If you recall the Wayne's World scene where it's like, "Hi, I'm in Delaware," and you think, "What's in Delaware?" And so two things happened while I was my first trip there for work. I was like, "Where do I eat?" So what do? I pull out my phone, I search for restaurants, and find this wicked awesome ramen bar.
Okay.
That's amazing. And like the food was great. I'm like, this is in the middle of like freaking Delaware. Like the stereotype is there's no culture here. Like if you want to have fun in Delaware, you go to Philadelphia. You know?
Nice.
And then on another occasion, a friend of mine was like, we should go to this place that's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm like, where the F is that? And I'm just kind of like, same thing. He got on his phone, started looking up places, trying to find a cool place to go. And I had a really awesome drive from like where I was in Delaware through like the countryside. There were hills, and I saw several Amish people. And I'm such a city boy. I get excited about Amish people. So, and so like if you're in a town that you don't know, then you can find all these places you wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
Oh yeah.
And another occasion, like we had to go to France for work, and I asked my boss, like, "Yo, is it cool if I like hop in the rental car and joyride between now and dinner?" He's like, "You're a big boy." I'm like, "Okay." So I was like, "Off I go." So I hopped in the car and I did some joyriding.
What was the rental car? Was it like, did you want to drive the car, or did you just want to explore?
No, it was like this little tiny Mercedes hatchback that they don't even sell in the US.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was like a B series, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't even have those in the US because like there's no market for a Mercedes like that here. And it was actually like an affordable car, like, and it was a little diesel. There's a lot of diesels in the countryside in France, I noticed. But I wouldn't have been able to just go out and joyride. I would have definitely gotten lost, probably for hours. You know, so I actually had the ability to hop in a car and just drive off and take random turns. I ended up in some very cool places too.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, it's sort of like, and that was really convenient because if I try to speak French, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad.
You know, oui and croissant and probably omelette du fromage, and then past that, it's
Yeah, and that was just from an episode of a TV show, right?
Yeah.
And then I can't even say 20 in French. It's like the. Like I tried to say it in French. People were like, "What number are you trying? Is that even a word? Like, is there something wrong with this man? Like, he's on meth. It's meth." So I wouldn't have really been able to stop and talk to anybody. So it allowed me the ability to get around and see stuff that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. But at the same time, it's like we have to interact with people socially. Like stopping and asking for directions isn't even a thing now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you stop, it's like, "Hey man, my phone's dead. I was wondering if you could," but it always starts out with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you were to just stop and ask someone for directions, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy and be like, "Google it. What the hell do you want from me?"
Yeah, it's like, don't you have a electronic device in your pocket that you can use? But then it's the same thing that you said, that frees us up for other stuff. So the time that it would take to find an exit somewhere, or to drive past a filling station, or a downtown area, or a church, or some other community center where you might see people. There's an amount of time that it takes to do that. There's an amount of time that it takes to ask a person, to hear the directions, process them, and hope that you've got the right stuff in your head, and then go the right way. And there's still the possibility of getting lost, which will take up even more time and take even more energy and even more thought.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see your point a lot, that it can help free us up for other things.
Well, even like not even thinking like just time wise as far as directions. Like if you think of like I know now the way that I learn things, the way my brain works. If it's some like if you teach me something and I know that it's something that I can easily find somewhere, I almost don't put it to memory because I categorize it as like, oh, I can Google that if I need to learn it later. Or like I know that it's like I can always reference this rather than like needing to actually file it in my memory as like, oh, I need to remember how to do this myself. Like,
and there's also the idea that, I mean, if you want to know how to make a killer pound cake, or change the brake rotors on a 2001 Acura TL, or if you want to know which thing to attach the recharge thing to your air conditioner, like which one of the valves do you connect it to, or realistically anything. You can. There was just some person that was like, I'm gonna put this on YouTube so someone can learn it.
Yeah.
Random stuff. So I think that there's a lot of ways that you can save money doing that, and you know, like there's a lot of food that I cook that I get recipes from the internet.
Okay.
Like all kinds of different things, like, you know, like rice soup and all sorts of other stuff that I've made over the years that I wouldn't have known how to. I would have had to have sought out somebody or worked in a restaurant where, you know, people cooking that type of food, or there's a lot that I think that we can learn in every regard. But I guess to the point that you're making about not necessarily committing something to memory because you know that you can find it later if you need to. Is that necessarily a good thing?
I could say yes and no. I mean there's definitely I would say detriments to it, but at the same time I feel that it's like the same argument of bandwidth where, you know, I don't know, like, I mean, I don't think we all like we know fully how the human brain works, but it's like I kind of liken it to a PC almost, or like a hard drive, you know, where it's like you've only got enough space to remember so many things. And if you're actually, you know, having to spend some of those resources remembering things that maybe you could just reference later, like I'm saying, it frees up the ability to use that for other things maybe.
For the stuff that you have no choice but to commit to memory.
Exactly. Yeah. Stuff that's basically necessary. Yeah. It cuts down on the number of things that would fall in that category of necessary, I would say. Yeah.
That's true.
But at the same time, I can totally see that it becomes a crutch, and it like I don't know, like back to the original question. I don't know if it makes us weaker, I would say, but it definitely oh man. Fuck, I wanted to like I can't find a better synonym. Yeah, no, maybe it does, honestly. Yeah.
I think that, I mean, there's a lot to be said because I've heard people talk about before. It's actually, I think I want to say it was a guy named it was Tim Mackey, who's one of the few Christian pastors who I don't think is a blithering idiot.
Okay.
So yeah. By the way, if you're not any kind of religious, you should look up Tim Mackey because the guy's smart as crap.
I don't know if I've heard of him before.
But at one point, he's well, I may as well just plug the guy's work. He and a group of people did a really cool thing called the Bible Project, where they allow people that are actually interested in reading the whole book a tool to help them to understand it. Okay. And it's really cool because you don't have to believe in a deity to get some kind of value from the work. If it's better if you don't take it literally, it'll make you a lot smarter. But one thing he was talking about was, you know, ancient Hebrews, and the fact that if you look at Hebrew school, you know, there are young Jewish people that are memorizing entire portions of like the Hebrew Tanakh, and that historically those individuals have done that for a long time. But Tim Mackey said something about like spreading stories through word of mouth, and he was like, well, these are people that didn't have anything to use to remember things. So they were actually reading all this stuff and memorizing it and hearing things and memorizing it themselves. Their brains weren't mush like ours are now. Like ours are now. Sorry, I just reversed those words. And I kind of like thought, like, is that true though? Like, are our brains mush now? But if you look at it, like, I feel like, because look, I don't know. I hope this. I don't think this would come off as an anti-Semitic statement, because it's not anti anything.
Okay.
I have never personally met a Jewish person that wasn't smart as hell.
Yeah.
Every Jewish person that I have personally met has been ridiculously intelligent. And especially rhetorically, they were very good at arguing.
That was almost pro-Semitic, honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, but I don't want to stereotype people, but I'm not, because these are people that I've met personally, that I know personally, and actually one of my close friends is half Jewish, and she's sharp as a freaking tack. Very articulate, very, very smart, very quick on her feet. And she's not an acquaintance; she's actually a close friend. So I think that in some way, it's possible that that is something in their genes that may diminish over time. You know, if the stress isn't, but the thing is they still do this practice, like they still memorize like volumes and volumes and volumes of stuff in a very difficult foreign language.
Yeah.
Like Hebrew's very hard.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a very complex language, right?
They've got a lot less words than we do. So one thing can mean a lot of stuff. And so context is super important. But, you know, it's just, I feel like, you know, when I heard Tim Mackey say that in his I don't know what you call it, his teaching or his message or whatever that he was delivering to a group of people, might have been a lecture actually, that I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that, you know, their brains weren't mush. And I was like, well, I resent the hell out of that. How dare you say that about me? Because it's about me, right? So, well, I mean, it makes me wonder, over time, are we going to end up like that Idiocracy movie, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. So that is a good point, because I was going to go to, you know, I don't know if it's, you know, worse or like, you know, like saying like brains are mush. I don't know if it's worse or is it just different. But at the same time, once you brought up Idiocracy, yeah, there is kind of a sliding scale to it. Yeah.
The thing is it seems that this conversation keeps veering toward dystopian sci-fi type stuff. Yeah. Because for anyone that doesn't know of Idiocracy, it's a movie with, was it Luke Wilson? I think was in it.
I think it was Luke. Yeah. Yep.
He's like an average guy that somehow gets frozen or something like that, right?
Yes.
Or
for like 500 years, was it? Or
yeah. And then he's just a normal guy, not actually that bright. But then when he wakes up, humans have devolved to the point like where we're really, really, really unintelligent, and everyone's like focused on everything's super sexual. Everyone seems to be focused on that.
Well, what happens in the movie? They tell you like in the years he's frozen, basically, you know, people that were of higher intelligence decided to, you know, like wait to have kids basically, and had a lot less kids, and people of lower intelligence just kind of fucked like rabbits and had a lot of kids, and the lower intelligence outbred the higher intelligence and basically ended up, you know, taking over and becoming the norm, right?
Yeah. So, and it's weird because this dude, who wasn't really much of anything by our standard, was a super genius at that time. And it's kind of sad to think that, you know, maybe that's the point that we'll end up at. But I mean, it's also not that likely, because reproducing is still a biological imperative, and we're still kind of built that way. You know, it's like you can't blame somebody for accidentally having a kid, because everything about the way that sexual attraction works is pretty much geared toward that. It all leads to it.
Yeah.
Maybe not the point here, but I think that it's unlikely that we'll get to a point in that exact scenario where only unintelligent people are reproducing. But, you know, it's...
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely not only, but I do think that's, I mean, the situation of course is satire and it's funny, but there is a lot of realism to that. And I mean, of course that's what, you know, the writers of the movie took. But I mean, if you look at, you know, like the number of accidental pregnancies or unplanned pregnancies, I think, you know, would fall, geez, I don't know how to say this. Like if you were to like, if you were to take IQ data from every unplanned pregnancy, the parents, do you think there is a chance that it would fall below the norm or at the norm or above?
You know that many, not all, but many pregnancies of people who are married are accidental too, right?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying unmarried. I'm just saying people like
Unplanned.
Yeah, as in like I mean I feel that it takes a lot of forethought to say like, oh, I'm going to be, very careful about this. I don't want to have a child right now. I don't think I'm ready or financially, things like that, like versus just kind of not caring and having like either unprotected sex or I don't know. Yeah.
All it takes is enough whiskey.
Yeah, okay, that's true too. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I'm looking at some unsubstantiated, uncross-referenced statistics right now, so I don't know how worthwhile these are.
Those are the best kind of statistics.
So
what do you?
Oh, this is a trip. I don't even know that I can actually discern what this data is actually supposed to mean.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's I think this is one of those graphs that doesn't label one of the axes to be misleading, so we're not going to use this data.
Okay. What was the study though, or what was like the?
It looked like that one. I don't even remember what it was for. I think it was related to like the war on drugs thing. It was a graph that Reagan showed that basically told you nothing.
Okay, yeah.
But since it was a graph, it was kind of like, a graph, fancy. Like this is not. So there's no label on the graph even.
Yeah. So it is literally just lines. Okay.
Like I'm super confused by this. Maybe I'm just really, really, really unintelligent. But
maybe it tells you somewhere in the body of text that what the axes are, but.
Well, we don't have time for that.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that.
Apparently, there's an unsubstantiated claim that 50% of pregnancies in the U.S. are unplanned. Demography of unintended pregnancies.
I'm surprised there's data on that. Someone actually
do
a study? Huh.
Okay. Oh, there's a pie chart, boy.
Nice.
I really hope that this is actually a wise use of time looking this up now, because I'm very interested in this now, because we sort of like took a bit of a turn here, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think the demographics for unplanned pregnancies would probably be more socioeconomic than anything. It's probably going to be more below average income than like I don't know if anyone like studied intelligence or anything in regards to that. But I could see people studying, economic status as part of that.
Oh man. Okay, this one's number in poverty.
Yep, I called it. Yeah, that makes sense.
But the thing is like, I don't know about poverty, but it's like, what's the correlation between intelligence and income?
Okay.
Because we're talking about unintelligent folks. Reproducing, but oh man, this is nuts. So I don't even understand these statistics. I didn't pay attention in the statistics course I took, I guess.
Yeah, I was there.
This is just difficult for a normal person that's not a statistician to, I can't even freaking say it. Someone that's not a statistician to actually like discern. I'm super confused.
Well, but I mean, back to your original point though. I think, honestly, there might be a lot to that our reliance on technology and also just the availability may be making us actually objectively weaker. Like maybe both physically and mentally. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a machine, because a machine would be technology. There's a machine that can do something strenuous for you, then you won't cause the adaptive stress to your body to make you stronger by doing that task. But the other thing is that task will be more efficient.
Yeah, true. But even look at our like
trade-off.
Even look at our recreational time. You know, I mean, look at, like, for me, case in point, I would not be spending hours and hours sitting and playing it. You know, I'd spend hours and hours sitting and playing a video game because it's something that's available to me because of the technology. If that wasn't available, what would I probably be doing with my recreational time? Something physical, right? I would think. I'm not just going to be, you know, if technology wasn't a big part of our lives or didn't exist in the way that it does now, what would my recreation be? It would have to be something physical. I'm not just going to sit inside and stare at a wall.
Right. I mean, I would think it would be, and you know, I mean, in your case too, like it's not like you don't exercise. I mean, you certainly do that. I mean, would you maybe be doing more of it if you didn't play video games a lot? I mean, maybe, probably.
Probably, yeah.
It looks like someone actually in the comments here, Art. I don't know how long ago Art said this. Dependency on technology to learn is a weaker form of seeking knowledge, and even learning is weaker. I mean,
I can somewhat agree. I think, yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Yeah.
Do you remember when we stayed up all night to finish our senior projects?
Yeah. I remember what you're talking about.
And we went to the library.
Yes. Well, that's how old we are, man.
Yeah. So I mean, that is a good point that he's making. That was because it was okay. So yes, I don't know if this is analogous. My dad and I were talking about power steering one time.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, no power steering." Oh. And he was like, "Well, hold on." What he was saying was that the way you've experienced it is when a power steering system has failed.
Yes.
So you're experiencing what it feels like to move the apparatus itself that's not functioning properly.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when there was no power steering to begin with, it's really not so bad.
Yeah.
Only when the vehicle is going particularly slow do you have to use any elbow grease, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where, you know, fine, maybe my ability to turn a steering wheel, I could be made stronger for it, but it happens more efficiently now. So it's like I work better with this technology, but without the technology, perhaps I don't function as well by myself. So I guess that's sort of the idea is, should we be concerned about the fact that without the technology, we would be probably less adequate or less efficient at the task? Or should we be glad of the fact that the technology is there to make us better at the thing? It just depends on how you look at it, right? And I think in Elon Musk's case, when he says, you know, I'm an augmented human, is that I can do more, I can experience more, and I can do it faster with this thing than I can by myself. Because there's some stuff that's not possible.
Oh yeah,
without
exactly.
technology.
Yeah. Well, and I would bring the point to, I don't want to like get us off on a weird tangent, but like in my mind, almost, there's part of me that believes that kind of is the future of humanity. You know, it's like, I mean, like everything evolves through nature, but also, I mean, technology, what we've came up with, that is natural because us, a natural being, came up with it. You know, like I kind of think that like almost, you know, it's gonna be like we go from Homo sapien to Homo technologist, you know, where like we start to incorporate technological aspects into our biology more and more, and that is like the next step of what we will become.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about like, you know, biological evolution might be over with and now we'll just evolve technologically because we can do it faster. And, you know, to get back on the sci-fi thing, if there's a point where people are actually adding mechanisms to their bodies, like electronic eyes and, you know, prosthetic limbs and things like in sci-fi films, that's technology that's kind of attached to you that may not be able to easily be removed from you.
Yes, exactly.
So then at that point, you truly are an augmented human. And yeah, then now you're a biomechanical thing. Man.
Which, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, going back to, I mean, we kind of brought it up earlier, that is the thing that's even necessary for some people to look at pacemakers, you know, like that is a technological augmentation that allows that person to live because, I mean, for lack of a better word, their heart is not strong enough or so it doesn't function to actually be the thing that pumps their blood, I guess. It's, I don't know. Yeah,
because at that point it's taken a human with a weak organ and allowed that organ to work. Well, actually, wait, don't pacemakers are to they don't they stimulate the heart with electricity?
I think there are multiple different types that do different things. I mean, there's some like that even, with the artificial valve that I think it's all a piece of machinery that is working itself. And
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, that's beyond.
I'll just speak out of ignorance then, because that's the best way to speak, right? Yeah. So also another comment in the comment section here from Art is that that specific tech makes you stronger, and that's kind of the point that I was going to make, is that you have a human that has a weak, once again speaking out of ignorance, a weak organ, and now you've offered them this other thing that will make them stronger. And for me, it's that's a good thing, and because there's plenty of other stuff that's included in technology, depending upon how you define it. I mean, biotech is certainly technology, pharmaceutical tech. So, I have, I talk about a lot, but it's part of my perspective. So yeah, I have a genetic muscle disease. And if tomorrow somebody offers me some kind of crazy nano robot they're going to inject into me, and then all of a sudden I can go fight competitively again and like climb freaking mountains and, like do, I don't know, I don't know, like climb rocks without a rope. Sorry, Mom. That I would be like, okay, yes.
Yeah.
And then it's like, without that, yeah, I am weak, but that doesn't change anything. Physically, I'm weak anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, now this is given to me and I truly am an augmented human. Or even, RNA therapy or whatever other stuff, because this is a genetic disorder. Those things, I mean, they'll make me a stronger person physically. But it's like, I don't, there's certain types of technology that just make things more convenient.
Yeah.
So maybe not stuff like, the pacemaker or some hypothetical nano robots that make your muscles work. Some of it is just really for convenience, why in the actual fuck do you need to have a freaking trash can where you wave your hand over it and the light sensor signals a mechanical device to go like and then open the trash can for you? I mean, what is the point?
Well, okay, there are benefits to not having to open the lid with your hands, but I mean, like the foot, the foot pedal that does it is the same thing. But I could see,
of
like,
course, I guess it's like, what benefit is there? Like, what increase in your character are you going to have from opening a trash can? Maybe this is a poor example.
Well, no, I mean, but there is, I think there's something there where there is, like, it's not a necessity, but it's like, okay, let's say you've got raw chicken on your hands, and you want to throw something away, rather than actually touching the lid with your hands and spreading that, you can open a different way. So there is like, that's a tech.
You lick it off your hands, man.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I couldn't even say with a straight face. Okay, yes, I mean, you're right. That's a point. And then in the process, you could actually save some hand soap.
Yeah,
because the alternative would be that you wash the hell out of your hands before you touch the thing to then keep the bacteria from it,
and then go back to working on the chicken.
But then that's bacteria that your body doesn't have to contend with, which could make your immune system stronger.
True. Yeah. See, I
could
wonder
do this all day.
Well, no, that was like kind of where my mind was going with some of even the technology that, like we were talking about, like, okay, like pacemakers or something. Like, okay, is there? Oh man, this sounds really. I hate how this sounds talking. I'm not advocating for any of this, but exploring ideas. Is there a possibility that there is a net negative to that for the entire human race, where people that maybe would not be reproductively viable are becoming reproductively viable because of technology then, and are able to spread genes that will effectively make humanity as a whole somewhat weaker?
Oh man, you want to shave the edges of that mustache off, buddy?
Right, I need to. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No,
I had to. I'm so
it's pretty
sorry.
bad. But no, like.
Well, so it's like, I get what you're saying, and I really don't. There's certain parts of world history that give people a bad idea or perspective when people say things like that.
Yeah.
But if you bar any kind of megalomaniacal genocide from it, because that's not necessarily what people are saying. So like, I thought about something that I've thought. I was listening to some stuff about the whole superbug thing, and that we've inadvertently, killed off many kinds of bacteria that really weren't particularly strong, and so then like we've got the really badass ones that may still survive, and that those pose a bigger threat to us. And I was sitting there thinking to myself that you think about. Oh man, I'm gonna go like way off here.
That's fine. That's kind of real quick to touch on what, like, to think about what you're saying. That's kind of like, I've heard that brought up in, because we have like antibacterial everything, that everything's 99.9%. So we're actually like functioning as an evolutionary filter for the bacteria, right? And only the strongest are surviving. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm making sure we're on the same page. Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm talking about. So the strongest among them survive, and so now the likelihood of the weaker genes multiplying is lower, because they have been extinguished. So now like the stronger ones are there to be able to reproduce and make more of the super strong ones. So we've accelerated the ability for the selection to occur. And I was thinking about this, and I thought, so yeah, I'm not what you would call a deist, but if you look at deistic perspective, sometimes they've got a bit of a point. Maybe not with the kind of specificity that some people would choose to believe in them. But if you look at things like a virus is not exactly alive, but not exactly dead. It's essentially like a case of genetic material that needs something else to reproduce itself. So, but the thing is these things exist. And they don't really seem like they have a purpose, but I mean, they certainly do. And I was thinking to myself, like, is it a good thing? Is biotechnology a good thing? Is modern medicine a good thing? Because there's a lot more people here now than there ever really were, because there are many occasions where you have 6 kids, 2 of them survive. And then after kid number 6, like the mother dies. So it's like, people dying during childbirth and children dying, and we think of that as being a good thing, that these things do not occur. But I had to think to myself, like, I understand that to one individual their life is a big deal. But I've been reading Seneca the Younger and Marcus Aurelius and different Stoics recently, and I've had to accept the fact that my life will end, and that I have to sort of suspend my ego and realize that there might be more important things than just my life. And I am well aware of the fact that I could be one of the people that doesn't exist or dies because these things aren't around. For me as an individual, that really sucks, because I'm experiencing existence through the center of it, which is me from my perspective, and you from your perspective. So that could affect me. But I also thought to myself, I need to suspend my ego in this situation and think that it could be a positive for me not to exist in a larger picture, which most people don't want to acknowledge because they can't handle that. And even for me, like, as someone with weak skeletal muscles, if not for society, civilization, and technology, I'd be dead. But that doesn't necessarily bother me. And so yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, maybe if we didn't have all the technology that we have now, would some of the people that don't exist would it not necessarily be the worst thing ever for humanity as a whole that those people don't exist, at the risk of sounding insensitive?
Well, and also I hate
are we on roughly the same page?
Yes, but it's like, I hate using the terms like good or bad, because it's not an objectively like good or bad thing, or worse or better. It's just like I don't know another word to use though, but it's just like I guess stronger or weaker as a herd. Like it's tough.
So because then what we would be doing, because I've thought about this so many times. Like, and it even goes hand in hand with the whole superbug thing.
Okay,
we're killing off at an increasingly faster rate the weaker ones. So then the stronger ones will sort of inherit the earth, so to speak, or they'll now be the ones that, because I mean most bacteria is actually harmless, right?
Yeah.
To us, a lot of them live in us.
Yeah, a lot of it's actually beneficial. Like
there's a few that are pretty harmful, and we know of most of those. I'm sure there's plenty more that we don't know about yet. But I thought of things like that because of the way that things are structured. We have bad traits that just get passed on, and like normal stuff like bad eyesight.
Yeah,
like just little things like the number of people that are wearing glasses, like those people probably might not actually have a very high rate of survivability if it wasn't for corrective lenses. Well, you're not going to die without corrective lenses, in at least in the US.
Yeah, not in our modern world. Yeah, but there's times in
you
history where you would. Yeah,
right. Yeah, you could even have the bad untreated vision and you'd still be okay. And there's plenty of people that actually didn't even realize they had bad vision until they just, ooh, let me put on your glasses, cousin Sally. Wait a second.
Is that how the world's supposed to look? Holy shit.
Like, oh, the trees have leaves. That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of like not so great stuff that's just continuing to be part of the gene pool. And me having a very fucked up X chromosome out of social responsibility for the human race, I won't reproduce. Because if I have a boy, he'll be fine. He'll just have whatever fucked up shits on my Y chromosome. Maybe male pattern baldness. I don't know.
He'll be hairy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. If I have a girl, she will have one of my X's, and one of my X's is effed up. So she won't show symptoms of Becker's muscular dystrophy, but she can pass it on. And I can't have that shit on. Like, I don't want to put ripples through time that are like that. I don't want to have that shit on my soul. Like, I'm using the term soul loosely. Yeah. So also it just gives me a really excuse to be selfish the rest of my life. So I mean, I'm not going to act like that's not part of it, but I think that I have responsibility for humanity. I think it's my responsibility not to roll the dice on that one. My mom didn't know.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. Well, I mean, there was a possibility. It's actually possible that my grandmother was the first mutation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we don't know of anyone else in the history of our family. If they just all got that lucky, but they're McCoys, and well, they're Irvins actually. That's the maiden name. Okay. So that was her side of the family. So, but we don't know of anybody else in the history that may have had any disorders aside from my uncle and myself. So, pre-pregnancy, like genetic testing and crap like that, I don't know that it was really that big of a thing in the 80s. I don't know for sure. But yeah, it's like, so are the people that couldn't survive without technology, are they a burden for the human race, I guess, is maybe kind of what we're asking, since we're relating this to technology, right?
Yeah. And not where, like, in the term burden, I mean like almost exclusively evolutionarily, not that like, oh, they're a burden to take care of or anything like that, but it's like actually being just a net negative in genealogy or in the gene pool, basically. Like the it's almost the inverse of what is being done with the superbug, like you're saying. Yeah, we're almost like making it easier for things that would be almost weeded out by natural selection to not be.
Yeah, so we're doing the opposite. Instead of like instead of killing off the bacteria that's weak, we're being like, reproduce weak bacteria.
But look, I think it's humanity's
I'm not advocating
nature.
Executing people, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, definitely not. No. But it's almost like there's a part of human nature to do that. Look at how they have to tell people when you see the sea turtles hatching, you cannot help them to the ocean. You know what I mean? Like there is a number of those that have to die because they are too weak to make it to the ocean. And if you are helping them there, those ones that are not strong enough to do that are then going to pass on their gene. Like, I think that's a very good analogy for exactly what we're talking about. Humanity wants to save everything that we have the power to save, rather than just letting nature take its course.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the intent behind modern medicine. And it's just it's difficult because there's the saying, and I think there was a heavy metal band that we used to listen to, the death of one is a tragedy, the death of millions is a statistic. So like understandably to that one individual, it's a big deal for them to perish, but and maybe for the people close to them, but to humanity as a whole over time, maybe not so much. But then there's the other point that maybe because of the fact that we're allowing, so without rule of law and without civilization and without organized social groups, there's a lot of people that may not or probably wouldn't survive. Maybe because of the fact that we're allowing traits that under other circumstances might not be desirable, maybe because we're letting those traits continue, maybe we need to augment ourselves with technology now.
Making it become a necessity. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a, well, I don't know, a win-win. Like, hey, you don't have to die, and even though you're maybe not best suited for a life outside of our civilization, we can make you stronger.
Better,
we
faster?
Can make you awesome. You can not get lost on the way to that new restaurant downtown. You can Google it to find out if your friend's full of shit or not. And actually that's one thing I think is fantastic, because there's a lot of stuff that like older people could get away with that we can't.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Like you ever see the moment with one of your buddies and you have a disagreement and your friend gets his phone out, you know what he's doing? He's looking it up.
Yep.
And then like after a minute he quietly slips his phone back into his pocket.
You're like, yeah, what was that text you just checked? Nothing.
It's like, oh crap, my buddy was right. I was okay.
I've been that buddy. I've been there.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, so what you said that your dad owned the company that invented Ethernet cable? Hold on a second. What'd you say they were called? Let me look that up.
Yep.
That was Xerox PARC. That's not the company you just named. In some ways, that's kind of cool because it actually decreases the amount of bullshit that people are allowed to get away with.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's a good thing.
Oh, definitely. Look at it's almost like, oh geez, I was gonna say like it's almost impossible for there to be like the snake oil salesman of today, but I actually, as I was saying, that's like, no, they're definitely still out there. It's just a different breed. But I feel like it was very easy for people to be taken advantage of by con men for a long time because we didn't have access to the information to know any better, to learn. Yeah. Which I think that's a net positive that technology has given us, but I don't know. Yeah, as far as making us weaker, we're now basically talking as a whole rather than individually, right? It seems.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think we've broadened the perspective out a bit, which is, it's I think necessary for the discussion. And it's like, I think the conclusion that I've kind of come to here is that it is true in many cases that with the presence of many types of technology, without that technology, the person is immensely less capable because they've been able to do something with technology.
Oh yeah.
But when you look at the individual without it, they're better and more efficient with it.
Yes.
So you might be proportionately weaker if it's taken away from you than you would have been if you never had it. But also, I think humans, for the most part, are pretty good at adapting. I think, depending upon the technology, depending upon the task, I would give 3 to 6 months before a human could become at least comfortable doing something without the technology.
Talking about the things that there is like an option for, because like you're saying, there is some technology that it's necessary to do. Yeah.
Right. There's some stuff that's like not going to matter either way. But it's like if someone has their car taken away, then how long is it before they just get the endurance to ride a bicycle everywhere they need to go, or they adapt their lifestyle to only going places where you can ride a bicycle, or walk for that matter. But for real though, maybe just buy a bicycle. Ignore the fact that there's one right behind me right now. But yeah. So I think that a lot of it is this idea that if it's taken away, that a human can't adapt to not having it. And I 100% think the humans can.
So like going back to, I guess, the original part of our discussion, would you think then that, Thanos snap, instead of half of the people disappearing, sorry, spoiler alert for like a movie 2 years ago or whatever. But,
man.
Instead of like half the people disappearing, technology is just gone. Like anything, and technology again, in the broad term, anything I guess electricity based. All of a sudden, our electrical grid is completely gone, and there's no replacing it.
Yeah, well, we're not doing this anymore.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That would be a perfect time to just end stream. Like, but no.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We would have to actually travel across town to hang out instead of hanging out virtually
That would be
with
rough.
our mouseies and our keyboards and our. I just actually changed the setting on my mouse. Oops. Okay, it's good. It's good now.
But
Everything's fine.
Are you thinking that within the time that it would take for people to start dying, that we could start to adapt to new ways to get food? New, like is that logistically possible, or is it too hard the way that we live now?
If you increase the size to, instead of, I just opt to get rid of my mobile phone tomorrow, or I opt to get a flip phone instead of a smartphone tomorrow. That's one individual making a choice, or perhaps one individual having something happen. Maybe the phone gets broken and I can't afford to get a new one, or whatever.
Okay,
that's a much different scenario than the doomsday scenario of all technology is gone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that if the entirety of humanity were robbed of all electricity-based technology, that, carbureted engines are mechanical.
Yeah,
there's electrical systems in there, but the engine itself is completely mechanical. There's no electronic anything. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, like,
now
there are computers, of course, but
yeah, I mean, it's like looking at my keyboard and stuff. Okay, there we go.
Ooh, okay, hold on. No, go into the sort. Like, okay, the mining and the refining of petroleum to gasoline would not happen anymore, right? I mean, that there's a lot of electricity that goes into, or are those machines? I don't know.
That's true. Damn. That's true. So yeah, basically everyone would die but the superbugs. Full circle. I see what I did there. Everyone would die but the superbugs. So what would happen is, like, because eventually the rule of law would collapse.
Oh yeah. Very quickly, I would say.
Communities would get smaller geographically because they would have to, and those communities would get much more interdependent because they'd have to depend on each other for other things. So yeah, a crap load of people would die. I agree with you. I don't know how long it would take for us to figure things out, but there would be small groups of individuals that would kind of come together and decide, we're going to do this for the betterment of this group. And it would be a commune of people that realize that they're better together than they are by themselves. Because at this point, I think the reason why, and I'll go another way with it, because and that would be the term that we've used, and it's a good term, that would be a net positive for humanity, not because a bunch of people died, but because the people that were still around had to rethink, reorganize, and reorient themselves. Because one of the reasons why it's a struggle that a lot of older people don't understand, that we have such a difficulty finding meaning at our age because we are so prosperous.
Yeah,
there's all this stuff that's built, that what we typically refer to as the greatest generation. Yeah, their lives were hard and they suffered immensely and didn't get necessarily paid a whole lot for the labor that they were doing. And they had to deal with a lot of shortages and difficulties, but there was a purpose. They had a sense of something meaningful that they could do. Yeah. And now we're so prosperous. Like, I can be an island for weeks and the only people I have to interact with are the ones that I work with.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I can get at least an illusion of social interaction from video games. I can get the food that I want from the grocery store. I don't even have to have an actual person scan the items. I can go to a self-checkout and talk to no one and look at the ground.
Nowadays, you can have it delivered. You can just on your smartphone just get your groceries delivered and never even leave your house. Yeah.
One of my neighbors used to do that, and actually one of the people I work with is like, "What you doing?" She's like, "I'm grocery shopping." I was like, "What? Yep. Show me this." She's like, "You see, it's great." I'm like, "Oh my God." Yeah, you're right. Like, I don't even have to go to the grocery store. I can just, and I can order stuff from Amazon. And man, this is a great time for agoraphobics.
Yeah. And honestly,
you got
yeah.
social anxiety, you don't have to go anywhere.
But yeah, it is. I mean, it's almost just like I was talking about earlier, though, where it's the bandwidth. You know, that not having to do so many things for necessity that took up so much time and effort. It opens up so much time to just contemplate, like, oh shit, why am I here? What is the purpose? Yeah, yeah.
There's I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but a guy that I work with has a sign in his office that says, "Happiness is the ability to fret about whether or not you are happy."
Yeah. Oh yeah. I like that quote. Did you know who that is?
No clue.
Huh. I like that.
Do you want me to look it up?
No, it's fine. Well, it's whatever.
I'm doing it. You can't stop me because technology. I'm letting this technology make me weak.
But no, it almost like reminds me. I mean, it's like, you know, kind of tangentially, whatever. But it almost reminds me of the saying that there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole or whatever. Like that, it's like when you are in a dire situation, only do you have the luxury to not do these things that are quote unquote necessary. You know, not that I'm saying like religion is necessary. That was actually probably a really bad analogy. But it, you know, like you go what I'm saying. Like there's necessity weeds out a lot of freedom, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you think about a conversation I had with a guy that I work with. By the way, I Googled that. I might have butchered the quote because I can't find anything about it.
Okay.
Another guy I work with and I were having a conversation about how you didn't really have there was no need for a marriage counselor. There was no need for open and intimate communication in a relationship, because more of the reason at that point when you got together, it wasn't for political reasons. It was to survive.
Yeah.
Like, well, we need to subsist and we can't do it on our own. So I'm going to leave this here family. You leave yours, and then we'll settle down and we will make these little helpers. I mean, children. I mean, farmhands. Children.
Yeah.
Children.
Yep.
And a lot of them will die, but the ones that don't die will, you know, they'll help us to cultivate and blah, 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 blah. We can survive and be subsistence farmers and woohoo, yeah. So he was just talking about how people were just too busy trying to survive to worry about any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I guess in some cases, I don't know if this was the point you were making, but in some cases, the bandwidth that's freed up isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, well, again, yeah, I think it's hard to, because I don't know if it's objective good or bad. You know, it's just a thing. Whether, you know, like it's hard for me to say that it's objectively good or bad, really.
It may not necessarily be making us weaker, but I think it probably is making some of us less happy.
Yeah, I would say definitely, yeah. Because, I mean, like you said, happiness is luxury. If you are spending 100% of your time or 100% of your waking life doing the things that are necessary for survival, happiness is not a thought that crosses your mind. I would think. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, so I can't speak from.
Well, I think it's a relatively new idea that we're here to be happy.
Yeah, I would want to know, like in indigenous tribes that still live like basically a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, where a lot of the they spend a good amount of time, you know, like actually surviving. What are there words for happiness or depression, you know, things like that? Does that even exist in those languages? Yeah,
and even if there are, can we really translate them as the same thing, or does it mean something slightly different?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's you know, like there's even other things like the idea that we talked about this on a past podcast too. I think when we talked about self-improvement, we mentioned the fact that because all you had to do was be the star quarterback at your high school in town, or the kid that had the record for the tallest pole vault in your town or in the county or in the state. But now all you got to do, you'll find that asshole pole vaulter in Denmark that's way better than you'll ever be on their high school team. You can't be as great as you were anymore, because now the comparison's increased.
Yeah.
Let's start to that. Cars are much cheaper now because the market's essentially global. Well, not global, but you know, without tariffs, it's countrywide. I can go find a cheap car in Louisiana right now. I mean, maybe not in Louisiana, someplace, but yeah.
Well,
but somewhere, you know, and that's a benefit. But that's to people as a whole in a society where we exchange monetary units for work. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there is no really cut and dry conclusion we can come to, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like if there was a if you wanted to do like a normative or a prescriptive part of this, like what is the how ought it be? What should things change? Are we going down a bad road, or are we going down a road that just means we are different, and in the future we will be even more different than the humans that we were in the past? And can you say that it's good or bad or positive or negative, or is it just a reality of the trajectory that we're on, and it started a long time ago before anyone here was ever alive?
Yeah, the terms positive, negative, good, bad, they are in many cases really difficult to apply absolutely to anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I think is definite about any of the questions you asked is that it will be different, and things will continue to be different.
Yes.
And whether or not it's good or bad will have to be determined by people's standards as things change for their present time and their present perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess like back to the title, is technology making us weak? Is it? I mean, I guess like strong versus weak, you can put objective markers on, or at least try to. And I would say, like we've discussed, it's almost assuredly making us mentally or emotionally weaker. It's just a byproduct, I would say, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that it's entirely possible, but it's difficult to make a comparison because we don't have any definite. We can't, do like a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, jump in a telephone booth, go back in time, and get Socrates. Sorry. Okay, I said it wrong on purpose because they say it wrong in the movie. I don't want listeners, whatever, to think that I don't know how to say Socrates. But it would be difficult for us to really make a comparison to know whether or not people were smarter or at least more intelligent. Meaning barring knowledge and wisdom, but intellect as intelligence.
But it's even like with that, it's even hard to like objectively define intelligence, because like there's multiple categories, and it's like intelligent in what way? Like, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But I would say, I mean, as far as like just strength, I guess, like fortitude, I would say that we have the luxury now to be weaker.
True. Yeah. I mean, I think that anybody that wants to be physically strong or push their limits, you're not going to find that in everyday life. You have to go do it. You have to go get that. And so it's only for the people that truly want to find out, what they're made of, so to speak, at least in physical feats. They can go find that stuff. They can go find that difficulty. But there's other things that can still happen that can ruin you as a human. That don't require technology. That can happen regardless of how prosperous the society you live in is.
Yeah.
I feel like I might be missing the point now. But the technology doesn't necessarily stop you from that, but it makes it acceptable for you to not have those things.
Yes.
But it's more than just electronic devices. I mean, it's the way that things are structured, the way that capitalism in the United States works, and market economies and things like that, that instead of having to do all these things, instead of bartering, like I will trade you this cast iron skillet for a few chickens that can lay eggs. Young chickens that can lay eggs. Now it's, I will sell the eggs from these chickens. I will receive money for this. I will go to the place where I can purchase the cast iron skillet. The person that sold the cast iron skillet to the store will use the money they got from the store to purchase eggs. So now you don't have to directly interact with each other. We've just changed bartering and given each other these little like units, these promissory notes that we've given value to.
And like
So
in economics classes, we studied how that was almost just a natural progression that's going to happen from a barter system. It's just like it leads to that very quickly. Yeah.
Aren't you excited about this?
Am I a little bit? Yeah.
You just used your degree for something.
I did. Yeah. Just yeah. True.
Yeah, guys, you heard it here.
But it is like like the point that I was making though, it's like I think so much of this started, almost, what is it now? Like 12, 14,000 years ago when agriculture was developed. Like it's almost like those original developments, that those changes are just a series of dominoes falling that's leading to not leading to what we are now, leading to something beyond, but it has led us to where we are now. And I mean, I would say yes. It is almost assuredly true that in many metrics we are probably weaker.
I had someone at work a while ago. It was a much older fella. Ask me the question. I was on speakerphone helping somebody in one of our locations in Texas, and he was kind of maybe being facetious or maybe halfway being serious. I hope he might have been being dead serious. He asked me, can't we just go back to pen and paper because stuff was way easier then, we were way better at it? And I was like, no, because you would actually be dramatically more efficient if you attempted to do the same amount of work right now that you'd have to do with pen and paper.
Yep. Yeah. And
the person who I was actually helping was a roughly my age, so she found that very humorous. So I think that you would have to be sharper, stronger, and smarter to do less.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Because these things make us more efficient, and over a period of time, someone who's actually not as adept at something could get more work done than somebody that is, because they have all these tools to help them.
Yeah.
So by that comparison, I would say, if we're talking results alone, I think technology does make us stronger. I don't think it makes us weak. And because I think that, okay, if you took the advantage away from the person and then had that person and the other person try to do the same amount of work in the old way without technology being used, the individual that was not quite as adept at doing it the old way would not perform so well. But over a period of time, they'd perform probably the same way as the other individual, given enough time to learn.
Yeah.
So I think that it did make a human stronger or maybe more intelligent, but it also made them less efficient for us not to have technology. So while it might make us weaker, as in like we don't have the maybe mental or physical fortitude that the person that did it the old way does, you can't argue with results.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where like we're trying to look for, like, I guess, an objective metric. And I think that's a good way to do that. And it is, like, I mean, it's very true that, I mean, yeah, just like you pointed out, yeah, try to, do like, I guess, like, any kind of project, organizing it where like versus, with actual stacks of paper and folders and trying to, plan things versus having a PC where you have multiple applications that can do many things for you. And you have, 2 monitors that you can have multiple, tons of things going at one time. We're definitely way more productive. But is that how we should be? I guess like yeah, I'm trying to get to like a normative question, but it's like it's like we're saying there's not a objective right or wrong to it. It's very, like, I think it's up to the person, right?
Yeah, I think that's true to some degree. Some people may be able to do a certain task better than other people. For instance, me and my dad were talking about it was kind of funny. We were talking about shooting rifles.
Okay.
And I said, we were talking about firing at like 100 yards and hitting something. And I was like, well, you've never used an optic on a rifle before. You wouldn't be able to hit that as well as I would. And my dad was like, at 100 yards, I don't need a scope. And I was like, oh.
I think that's a good analogy there.
A lot of people shoot at 100. I think the Marines actually, I don't know if they still do that, but there's a Marine I work with that said that to qualify with a rifle, he had to shoot at 100 yards off iron sights on an AR-15.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's pretty impressive because at 100 yards, the forward, or not the forward post on the end of the rifle is about the size of the target. So
Okay,
it completely covers the thing you're shooting at.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Depending upon how big it is. So it's pretty impressive, I think. But yeah, my dad I feel like that's a good example because I think that if I had to shoot a rifle, if we had the same one, he used irons and I used an actual optic on it, he would probably be good at both.
Yeah.
And I would have a problem with firing the rifle off of the iron sights. But if we increase the distance, my dad would actually be able to we would both be able to shoot better over a longer range. And once it got to a certain point, there'd be a point where the iron sights wouldn't actually be a viable solution for sights on the weapon.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a really powerful analogy there. Yeah, because I mean, I love the way he said that, where we like so much of tech, I guess, like they're the sites in that situation. We are doing things that we don't need to use things for, but it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, because at a certain point, I'd be able to shoot just as well as him off of iron sights at 100 yards. It would take me time. Whereas we could both increase our abilities with technology, with a magnified scope on the rifle. So yeah, I mean that's kind of I'm still using the analogy here. I'm still using it. I like it. It's a good one. So that means that the person that could do things better the old way, if you give them a new method using technology, they could be more efficient too. Then you could both be more efficient. Yeah. Then it doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And
let's both use these instead of you bragging about how great you would be, how much better you'd be than me without this, because of the way you used to do things. It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the that argument, you know, that I guess you started with, you know, talking about how like a lot of times the older generation is thinking that the way things are now, or the way technology is used, or how prevalent it is like almost a bad thing, and why can't it be like it was before, or it was better before almost. It's I don't know, it's almost like a moot point in a lot of ways, that it's just, well, it's just things have changed, whether or not it's good or bad. It has changed. Maybe it's not necessary. Yeah, I don't know. This is a tough topic. I wish I had more time to prepare, but
yeah, I think to answer the question, I think my conclusion here would be that we cannot with complete certainty say that technology really makes humans weak. We cannot with complete certainty say that it makes humans stronger. We can say that perhaps without technology, humans may have more fortitude, more grit, maybe more tenacity. But with it, even if they lack the grit, the fortitude, and the tenacity, they can get more done. Yes. So those are the only real standards that we found that we can measure it with. And with those standards, we can't necessarily say beyond the shadow of the doubt that it makes us weaker or it makes us stronger. But like you said just now, I mean, different.
Yeah.
For sure different.
Yeah.
But not for sure anything else. For sure different.
And I think we just have to embrace that change. Trying to stand against it, or trying to argue that it shouldn't happen or anything, I think is just, it's pointless. You know, it is happening. It has happened. And that's kind of just a fact. You know, the old, like, go with the flow or whatever, like you kind of just have to accept that. And yeah. Well, do you have anything else that you would like to add to the topic? Have we wrung it out? Have we squeezed it?
The only thing I want to say is, for real, guys, go buy a smartphone.
What's wrong with flip phones?
You don't have a flip phone.
No, I wish I did though. Right now, if I had like my old Razor, I could pull out real quick and be like, yeah, I do. I would be really happy about that.
There's only one person that gets away with a flip phone, and you know exactly who that is.
Does he happen to have a Ethiopian poisonous caterpillar on his face?
What? Is that something he said?
Yeah, that's what he calls his mustache.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yes, we're talking about the same person. And if you
Good.
don't know who that is, guys, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, I guess it seems like we've reached the end of another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, just hit that like button, subscribe, comment below, and tell us your thoughts on technology. Is it good? Is it bad? Are we stronger? Are we weaker? I'd like to hear some other opinions. If anyone's interested in taking further part of the conversation, feel free to join our Discord. There's a link in the description below. Don't forget to join us next week. I believe that's when we are going to reschedule the topic that was supposed to be this week, where we are going to talk about addiction, which I'm excited to have that conversation. So look forward to that in the future. Thank you all for listening, and have a great week.